You cannot ride grade 3 or greater units without the name Demon Stealth Dragon Shiranui. Huh. Did Shiranui just become a demon? A person has turned into a demon? Not on my watch. Aqua Force Breathe. Fourth wave. Let the wind blow. Ah! Now that you got the Shiranui Deckset, what are some other cards that you should probably pick up to upgrade your deck? So let's dive right into it. Check out Dueling Guard's deck boxes, playmats, and binders. They're great quality products that are anime based. They continually have more anime options becoming available. Use the affiliated link in the description for a 5% discount on your next purchase. So I'm going to start off with the grade 2s because it makes sense with the ride line. Most players actually use the Shoto Doji grade 2. And so the reasons that it actually helps with the deck is because it helps with Soul. 2, it potentially calls a rear guard that you can use for a better early game because the deck struggles with early game, to be quite frank. So this is another way to help with that. As you play more with the deck, you start appreciating the card more too for what it does, especially with the soul charging aspect for later on, once your Restanders and your Makuro would need that Soul Blast essentially. The next card to go along with the Shoto Doji grade 2 is the Stealthy Nasasu, if that's how you pronounce it, Aiza for short. This is something that you want to play in the main deck where you can actually mulligan as well, and it helps with that early game perspective too. Notice that it only works with Shoujo Doji Vanguards essentially, and so it's on your grade 2 turn that you want to maximize this card on, ideally. This lets you use that Counterblast to get another card into your hand at that point to keep advantage, but it's a card that you can commit early on to help with that early game as well. And since it also has Stealth in the name, this is a card that you could also Soul Charge or just call when you ride with the grade 2 Shoujo Doji from the ride line. Other grade 2s that you want to consider is Braccio Force. So this is an on-hit pressure type of card. It's another card that you can call early on with like having that pressure too and getting some value from it too. It puts the opponent in an awkward position where they want to guard that or not. And if you do hit, you get to draw and retire essentially stuff. So it really helps with that synergy to get some value from it while you can just easily commit this card. This card also works in the mid to late game too, so it's not a total waste because at that point its effect technically is live. This is, really the situation when you don't have your Restanders and you need something else to fill that other column essentially. Another card that I've tried out is the grade 2 Cycler, Great Flame Axe of Ambitious Scales, Koga Flan. And so this is, again, the Cycler. You can Soul Blast to draw a card when you discard it for your right line, which what I realized with this deck too, a lot of the pieces that you have in your main deck, you really don't want to discard. And what sucks too is that, some decks are able to discard triggers in the early game just to make sure they keep their combo pieces. But sometimes you want to keep those triggers so you can live against certain decks too. So now you're in this awkward position, what to discard and what not to discard. So if you are constantly feeling like, I want a better discard target, this could be the card for you, essentially. Do keep in mind that you have to moderate your soul with this card too. But regardless of the discarding from the ride line or even just striding, it triggers in the right phase, so you can at least get a card out of it when you do discard this card. Shift into the grade 3s. In the deck set, we get 2 phenomenal Restanders in Sekai and Furai, but we also can optionally play the grade 4 Esperidia, which is also just a Restander in the same fashion, just a grade 3 generic card that we can use. Right now, it's not such a necessity with this card because typically you're good with the grade 2s to restand. I like to play one of these just in case because it's also a great 4-battle target, which I'll talk about later. But it also, later on, will have to deal with a card, I think it's called Bracing Angel Ladder, which will make it impossible for you to dominate essentially. So then Esperidia actually comes up more often at that point to get around those scenarios at that point too. So that way you can actually get some multi-attack benefit and still keep up the pressure later on as well. And it's a Restander just in general, so over time, the crest, you're gonna get twice the benefit just from that unit as well. Worst case scenario, it's a grade 4 that you can discard anyway too for Stride. So technically it's a grade 4 and not a grade 3, but same purpose. The other card we have is Peeling Dragon, and so I've seen people use this card too in tandem with another promo, which I'll talk about later on, but this card can be used now as well. It's another grade 3 to discard. It also has access to retirement, so you can dwindle the opponent's resources too. And it could be a potential shield if you do play any grade 4s, such as Esperidia, that's in your hand at that moment. But it also is a great discard target, so that way you're able to draw a card, especially when you pay the cost of Stride at that point later on. It's just free value at that point. Some orders that I do want to mention, just like I mentioned already, is for Badal. This card lets you search for those grade 3/grade 4s that you want from your main deck. And so you're able to deck then 2 cards immediately, making your drive checks a lot more scarier, especially in the Makuro turns, because you're going to see typically 5 drive checks in total. And those are the triggers that you can stack onto your Restanders too to make your threat your turn much more threatening against the opponent. So you can get cards like Esperidia, Peeling Dragon, the Shiranui that comes in the deck set too, the one that's a GB2, that's a beater as well. So you have some options too. The other aspect that Forbidal can bring is that it has revival in it. So if you have cards that you had to discard early on, or maybe they went to damage and you heal them, you can still get them later on in the mid to late game as well. Sanctitude is something that you want to consider too, especially if you feel like your metagame has a lot of grade 4s in it, especially if people are super excited with the deck sets such as like the Mirror Match or even Luard. And of course, you know, Chrono Jet and Messiah decks that are running around too as well. So it's something to consider. It also gets around guard restriction effects too, since it is a blitz order too, so there's that benefit. Otherwise, you could just stick with the 4 PGs that are in the deck set because they also have the stealth name, which comes up with the grade 2 Shoto Doji when you ride it, potentially. Now for the grade 1s, I want to mention that the promo that has been seeing a lot of play in Japan is not available in the English, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to make do. So right off the back, the next best thing to use is the Forktail grade 1. And so a couple reasons. One, it has the stealth name. So this is so chargeable or even just be able to call with the grade 2 ride. The other aspect is that it also deck ins from deck. So you're so selectively soul charging from the top 7 from your deck. And so you can really kind of pick and choose from that point what to soul charge, but you're decked in it in the process, which makes your damage checks and your drive checks a lot better too as well. The next option is Whiplash Whipposaurus. This card essentially soul charges 2 if you're at a higher grade than your opponent. So if you're going first, you're always going to get the soul charge. This is a great card that you can commit during your turn 2 while you're going first, because you'll be a grade 2 and your opponent's a grade 1, so you get to soul charge 2, but it still hits a Vanguard that's a grade 1 anyway. So you can poke at that point too. Later on, it could be a booster. And then in mid to late game, you're going to be striding anyway. So your strides are grade 4s naturally. So if you're going against a deck that's a grade 3 base type of deck, you're always going to be able to soul charge 2 as well. Another alternative is the Kaje Chica. It also has the self name just like Forktail as well, but this time it selectively charges from the drop zone. So you can easily dictate what cards you want to basically soul charge from the drop zone that way. If you feel like the top 7 Forktail isn't doing it for you, or maybe you just can't get the Forktails, and this might be your budget reason. So you want to have some type of soul charge with this deck too. You could also fall back to Zenkai that comes in the deck set as well. Worst case scenario. The one thing that I don't like about that card is that you have to hit from a dominated attack. So it's a very situational card, and you hope that you get it as well at that point too. Lastly, with the grade 0s, you want to get effect triggers, essentially. The criticals are even more important because they go into soul, which you'll need for later on. This could also be a booster for your re-standard on that first attack, just to make it like a better number, essentially too. Because 10 plus 4 would be like 14 at that point. So you hit over that 13k threshold. Not including any of like the Crest power-up or even their own like power-ups such as Furai or like Sekai, for example. Then depending if you want to play front triggers or draw triggers, definitely get the ones just to have more shield value. So that way you're able to survive longer as well. And then lastly, you can choose which heals with effects that you want depending on your metagame. Usually the ones that I see most often are either the re-standard one or maybe like the crit one. You could also play the one that counts like the higher grade. So if you're facing a lot of deck sets as well, that might be good because you'll be grade 3 while they're at grade 4 as well. Or you could just stick with the vanilla heals and then just call it a day as well. I will say that the deck set is pretty much complete on its own. So you could literally go to locals and take an event and actually do pretty well with it as it is. Think of these cards just to make that deck even more solid as well too, just to like be consistent. It isn't until later, once we start dealing with other stuff, that maybe some cards rise up in importance. Like if we get that V promo from Japan, that's definitely something that I encourage you to get ASAP. And even considering such as like a re-standard like Esperidia for those particular matchups when dealing with that new order that comes out later on as well. If you plan to pick up some of the cards, use the affiliated links to help you out to get some discounts and also support the channel at the same time. And if you're interested for 50 cards next bundles coming up for the new set for Divine Seed, he has some deals on that too as well. And if you feel like you need some help with the clan too as well, I offer one-on-one coaching, so feel free to check my Metafy out as well and book a session. Just happy to help out with the community as well. On to the next one, amigos. Bye!